Africa, Charles?
Yeah, it does, Mike. Yeah, thanks very much. We'll just play a video now while I speak over the top of it. This is from Nairobi, scenes of the last scenes from the last 24 hours or so, in which there's been widespread rioting, looting, call it what you will, in government buildings. And essentially this is shown by Al Jazeera, but it's in response to a couple of very controversial pieces of legislation. Now, whilst this focus obviously is on what's happened in the parliament in Kenya, the lessons really are to be drawn for everybody, because it just shows how precarious, in a way, we all are when sort of legislation like this is put forward. That particularly was concerning the finance bill, and we'll just have a look at what the government put out in terms of debt management for the year. So the Treasury and Economic Planning Group put out their medium-term debt strategy, and they absolutely spelt it out, to be fair to them. The government will continue implementing growth-responsive fiscal consolidation through broadening of tax revenue base and rationalisation of expenditures in order to reduce the fiscal deficits. It's just worth drawing out there that the public debt, they say, is at 68.2% of GDP, whereas in the UK at the moment, the latest statistics from the ONS say that we're at 98.3%. But nonetheless, the other part of legislation that is in effect much more controversial is the Land Law Amendment Bill, or at least in some respect, which I'll just explain in a second. And in particular here, we see that this clause states that the owner of any freehold land or property situated within the boundaries of any urban area or city shall pay an annual land levy equivalent to land rent charged on a comparable leasehold land or property of the same size in the same zone. So obviously that's a slightly complicated way of saying that it doesn't matter whether you were previously a freeholder. To all intents and purposes, you are now a leaseholder. And of course, that could be something that is taken on by any other administration anywhere in the world. Concurrent with this is a memorandum from the United States designating Kenya as a major non-NATO ally, of which there are 18 existing ones. But you might be interested to know what the privileges of such an appointment are, particularly in light of the situation not just in the Middle East, but also with Ukraine and Russia, and indeed the sort of worldwide financial situation. So that you're eligible for loans of materials, supplies, or equipment for cooperative research, development, testing, or evaluation purposes, critically as a location for US-owned war reserve stockpiles to be placed on your territory outside of US military facilities. Also, you're eligible to enter into an MOU or formal agreement for the purpose of conducting cooperative research and development projects on defense equipment and munitions. And again, just following Mike's segment, you're eligible for consideration to purchase depleted uranium ammunition. So these might seem slightly disconnected, but in effect, we've got protests generated by the increase of a number of taxes, some of which had been scrapped even prior to it going to the House for the final time, and it now requires presidential assent. But that's been enough to tip people into this sort of behaviour. Exactly how it's been incited or orchestrated doesn't really yet seem clear, but police are reckoned to have shot dead a number of people through the day and indeed through last night. So appalling scenes there. But the underlying point, of course, is that the economic vulnerability of that country and that region, and in particular the strategic significance, the geopolitical and military significance of East Africa and the Horn of Africa, and the interest from both Russia and China and the United States feeling like it needs to make a countermeasure in order to assert both military and economic control, is something that we'll have to keep a very close eye on.
Yes, indeed. Okay, thank you, Charles. And we're just